You're going to experience a big betrayal at least 2 to 3 times throughout your whole life. Maybe more. I hope less. But you've clicked on this video knowing the title because you've already experienced one. Maybe 6 minutes ago, 6 months ago, 6 days ago, 6 years ago. It doesn't matter the timeline in which you experienced this thing. This person sitting you down to admit that they've been cheating on you for this amount of time. Or the moment you looked into the shared bank account you have with your business partner to realise all the money has gone. Or just the simple admittance from the person that you have trusted in for a long period of time, and this plan that you had built together is now no longer, and you feel as if they've just been leading you along into a full sense of security, boom, and now everything's changed. Or maybe your parents have sat you down, or sat you down once upon a time to admit that they can't be together anymore and that a divorce is the next option, and you just feel like the vulnerable human caught up in the middle of it. No matter what shape or colour or form the experience of betrayal takes for you, the experience is the same for all of us. Someone who you once trusted in has now betrayed that trust and taken it for granted. Now everything that you believe and think about the world, yourself and other people is now on shaky ground, and you don't know where you stand anymore, and least of all do you know who this person actually is. Now here's why this all matters, and why I'm stood in front of this camera recording this video right now. If you do not become aware of the loop your brain is running based on this past experience, then quite simply, you're going to sabotage all of your relationships. Not because you're broken, not because you're bad at relationships, but simply because your brain is wired a very specific way, and it learned a very specific thing in the moment of you finding out about this betrayal, and it is going to continue that loop until you become aware of it. So why am I saying this with any authority? And in order to build a little bit of rapport between me and you, why have I woken up today with the burning passion to record this video, as if I feel I cannot do anything today but record this video? It's because 3 years ago, I want to be careful with the word betrayal, because at the end of the day it is an interpretation, but I experienced something that I thought I had recovered from. But recently I've realised I haven't. Now I'm not going to go into the specific details of that experience, but let me just say simply that someone who I once trusted in, a good friend, shared something with me I could never have imagined that they would have done. But at the time, I achieved forgiveness because I wanted to move on. And I felt quite stoic when I had the phone call and he shared what had happened. I felt not very emotional, it felt logical in my mind what to do next, and I moved on. That was 3 years ago. But now, the loop is still alive in my mind, and worse yet, it's showing up in my new friendships, and it's showing up in my relationship with my partner, which I know if it goes unchecked and I don't work through this, I'm going to sabotage the relationships that I actually love and value with the people who I love and value. And I don't want that to happen for me. Least of all do I want it to happen for you. So here's exactly what we're going to do throughout this video. I know this has been a long intro, and usually if you watch up my videos, you know I'm a little bit more prepared, and I have I've already hit you with the bottom line and all of this, and it's a very quick video. I don't have any notes right now. But there's one thing that I want to share with you, which I know has worked for me, is working for me, and I know it will work for you as well. Now, the thing I'm going to walk you through is a little bit of the neuroscience as to what happens and what happened in your brain when you learned this information, so that you can become aware of it. Because once you become aware of the loop that your brain is running, you will stop it from sabotaging all of your relationships. So we're going to walk through it now. Don't worry about remembering anything. You know, this experience might have come to mind right now, and you might feel as if you just have a generalized anxiety throughout your day, because you're constantly in the suspenseful weight of something is going to go wrong, I can't trust anyone, you know, my whole life has been shattered. Maybe all of those experiences and feelings are coming up right now just at the thought of the word betrayal. So we're going to take it slowly, we're going to take it together, and we're going to walk this path hand in hand with the purpose of liberating ourselves from the past. Because one of the big problems that we're facing right now, after having felt like our trust has been betrayed by someone, is the past, which we know doesn't exist. You know, all the spiritual ideas of there is only the present moment. The past is now showing up in the present. So what we need to do, what I need to do is get a new green pen, but what we need to do is separate the past from the present with awareness. So I've spoken a lot. Let's get into it. Now what I'm going to explain is what happened in that moment when you learned the information that you learned. Let's begin here. Your beliefs are the most fundamental level of behaviour change. And the loop that runs in your brain, which controls your behaviour, begins with your beliefs, and then it goes outward to your predictions. Don't worry, this might not make sense just yet, but I'm going to explain it all further in a second. Beliefs, predictions, then you feel emotions based on what your brain is predicting. Then you think based on those emotions. And then you act. So you behave. This is the behavioural loop that isn't just my framework, but it comes from CBT, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. And the founder of that specific type of therapy, Aaron Beck, I believe his name was, suggested this idea, which is it's not our actions that control our psychological realities, it's not our emotions, it's not our guesses about the world, it's not our thoughts. No, it's actually our beliefs. So what is a belief? A belief is your brain's guess about what will keep you safe based on past experiences. So how does this relate to our context of betrayal? Well, in that moment, that this person shared this information with you that your brain has interpreted as betrayal, you know, your trust was scattered in this person. In that moment, your brain learned something about three things. It learned something about yourself. It learned something about other people. And it also learned something, let me draw a globe. It learned something about the world. Why would your brain interpret things about these three things and save them in the form of a belief? Here's why. Reality is very complex. It's very chaotic, and there's so much information coming at your brain every single second. If we imagine reality as a map like this, so this is reality. This is every single thing that you could possibly experience. And your brain sees that and thinks, WTF, that is way too complex. And by reality, I mean everything that you sense, everything that you smell, touch, see. There are 11 million bits of information bombarding your brain in every second, even right now, which is the equivalent of reading Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace twice every second. That's how much information is coming at your brain right now. But you don't perceive it as this overwhelming sense of information. Why? Because your brain simplifies it. And it simplifies it by only processing about 50 bits of that information. per second, which is the equivalent of reading a sentence. You know, every single second, just one sentence. Which means that if 11 million bits of information are bombarding your brain every second, but it can only process 50 bits of it, what does it do to reality? Does it interpret, or does it absorb all of that sensory information? No, it simplifies it by seeing life through a keyhole. Because imagine if your brain had to interpret and sort through and organise 11 million bits of information every single second. It would be far too much and far too overwhelming. So it simplifies. And it says, look, let me just forget all of this stuff and let me just pay attention to the pieces of information that I think are important. I think is the key part. What determines the shape and the size of the keyhole, and what information filters through the keyhole. Your beliefs. Remember, your beliefs are your brain's guess about what will keep you safe, based on your past experiences. Another definition of beliefs is they're an opinion that is updatable based on new evidence. That's what a belief is. So that is why beliefs are so important when it comes to your brain interpreting pieces of information and going about your day. They are what determine the keyhole that your brain sees reality through. So now going back to our context of betrayal, what happened in that moment that your brain learned that new piece of information from that person, as horrible as it was? I've cheated on you, I've stolen the money, me and your dad are breaking up, or the plan's changed, or I don't want to be with you anymore. Whatever happened that you felt betrayed your trust, what your brain learned and did is it updated its keyhole of reality. Because remember, I'm going to draw it all in the same colour. You got beliefs, you got guesses, you got your emotions, you got your thoughts, and then you got your actions. So let's break this down a little bit further so we can actually see this loop with clarity. So, your beliefs are the most fundamental level of behaviour change and your personal reality. So in the moment that you learned that piece of information, your brain formed a new belief. It updated its model of the world based on this new piece of information, which is all it is. Which is why I was a little bit careful at the beginning of the video to use the word betrayal, because at the end of the day, as harsh as this sounds, it is an interpretation about the other person's intention while they were doing this thing. Your brain formed a new belief about reality based on this new piece of information. Let's stay with one example. Let's stay with the example of being cheated on, which is unfortunately a common experience for, that's horrible saying that, a common experience, but it's an experience that many people have faced. Perhaps this is in your case as well. When you learned about that information, your brain was optimizing for your survival. So it did it asked itself a quick question, not literally, I'm just simplifying the science so it makes sense a little bit. It asked itself a quick question, which was, oh, there's a new piece of evidence and there's a new piece of information here, which I didn't anticipate and that I could never have guessed. I thought I knew who this person was and I had trust in them and I thought I knew the ground upon which I stood. But I was completely wrong. So based on this new evidence, what is a belief I could save based on the emotions that I'm feeling that would best serve me to avoid feeling this thing again in the future? The person told you they cheated on you. What did your brain download? Could have been anything. Could have been people can't be trusted. Maybe you don't hear the actual sentence in your brain of, oh, I walk around with the belief that people can't be trusted. Maybe you do. Maybe you just walk around with this general distance towards people and this guarding of yourself towards meeting new people romantically or friendship-wise. Maybe it was people can't be trusted. Maybe it was something similar along the lines of, if person is like X, has a certain personality trait, then that means they're more likely to cheat, for example. Which sounds preposterous when you put it on the board, but this could be as simple as, well, maybe the person who cheated on you has a lot of tattoos. So your brain wants to gather certainty and it wants to liberate itself from it wants to protect you, sorry. So it just runs with whatever information it could use in order to cement the belief to avoid feeling that betrayal again. If the person has a lot of tattoos, or if a person has a lot of tattoos, then that means they're more likely to cheat. It doesn't matter what you want to believe. It doesn't matter whether the belief is true, nor whether you like it. Your brain, in that moment, formed an emotional rule about the world, other people, and yourself in order to prevent you from feeling that thing again. It could have been another thing, People can't be trusted. If person is like X, then that means they're more likely to cheat. Maybe it saved a rule about, or a belief about yourself. I'm unworthy of love, or I just get cheated on. In that moment, your brain formed the belief, which is what is showing up. If this experience happened for you a long time ago, this is what is showing up in your new relationships. Because let's take the example of this experience happened to you 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, someone cheated on you. But over time, you've worked on yourself, you feel quite sure of yourself, you've introspected on your values and on your principles, but now you get into a new relationship, but you have this weird generalized anxiety that something is going to go wrong. You feel that churning of hesitation in your stomach when it comes to committing to this person, and you just get the sense that you don't feel secure with anyone, no matter who they are, no matter what you learn about their past, no matter what you see in terms of the positive qualities that they are showing you in the present. Why? Why does your brain do that? It's because it's filtering out all of the positive things you could see about this person, and it is only focusing on the negative details which confirm either one of these beliefs that you formed based on your past experience. It does that because it's easy. It does it because it wants you to prevent feeling that betrayal again. And it also does it because the way beliefs work is, unless they get questioned and unless they go unchecked, your brain will keep finding and looking for and seeking evidence to confirm them. Because it's much easier to confirm a belief that you currently have than question it. Your belief shatters and now you have to update your model of the world. Because remember, this is reality. Oh, it's all going wrong. This is reality. These are the 11 million bits of information bombarding your senses in every single moment. But your brain just says, I want simplicity. I want certainty. I want an opinion I can believe no matter what. Because in this uncertain world and in the interactions I have with people, I understand that I can't control anyone, but at least I can control my little sliver of the world based on my experiences, so let me just seek new information to confirm what I believe. People can't be trusted. That's the keyhole through which all your information and interactions of other people gets filtered through. So guess what? You're going to find reasons for which other people can't be trusted. If person is like X, then that means they're more likely to cheat. Guess what? That's the keyhole through which you're seeing reality. If you enter a relationship or a friendship with that belief going unchecked, your brain is going to replay the loop and you will find answers and evidence and information to confirm what you believe. I'm getting a bit intense here because I'm speaking to myself through the camera. I'm not saying here that you just need to trust people more, or that you just need to discard everything that you believe, because this is a process. Updating your brain's beliefs, especially when they are formed and etched in as if they're carved into your being from emotional moments, it takes time and it is hard. And the solution isn't to just open yourself up to everyone when that is the last thing that you want to do. The solution isn't enter a new relationship and just fully give yourself and trust the other person. Even though that could be good for you, that's not the solution, because that's going to feel way too panicky for you. So what we're working on here again is just the awareness of the loop first. But let's go a few steps deeper by mapping out how do the beliefs ripple affect everything else in this behavioural loop. Beliefs. Let's stay with our example of being cheated on. The person has formed the belief that people cannot be trusted. Understandably so, when someone has been unfaithful towards them, which happened 4 years ago, they say. Now they're in a new relationship, but they have gone into the relationship with this belief unchecked. They can't even see it, it just shows up as that something is wrong feeling. That's the belief that their brain is perceiving all information through the keyhole of. That belief forms your brain's guesses about things. Now, your brain's guess is nothing more than a prediction about what will happen based on a piece of information. So to give you a quick example, your belief is people can't be trusted. So your partner, the person you're in a relationship with, your friend, for example, does something similar to what you experienced in your past relationship. I'm trying to think of an example. People can't be trusted. That is the keyhole through which you're seeing reality and perceiving new information. The new information that you've received is you are out with your partner and you go to a social event and other people are there, for example, and you're going into it with that belief. Your guess about what's going to happen is they're going to cheat. They're going to be unfaithful. Something is going to go wrong and I'm going to get caught up in the middle of it, and they're going to look at someone else, they're going to go off with someone else, they're going to be interested in doing something with someone else, and I'm just going to be, silly old Larry who's just caught up in it again. That's your brain's guess about what will happen. If your belief is one that is limiting and that one is fear-based, the guess is always going to be, well, something's going to go wrong. So, where does that lead? Well, it then forms, where are my pens? Let's do brown this time. Your emotions. That's what you feel. You don't just feel random emotions out of nowhere, although sometimes we do. Most of the times your emotions are coming because your belief has fired. That's how you're interpreting information. That's forming the guess that something is going to go wrong. And because your brain is anticipating something going wrong, you then feel as if it already has, because your brain is preparing for disaster. It's preparing to have that conversation again. It's preparing to learn that information about the person being treacherous or unfaithful, which means you then start thinking how you're feeling. You start having black and white thoughts, catastrophic thoughts about yourself, the person, or the situation that you're in. People can't be trusted. Something's going to go wrong. You feel unease, dread, a sunken feeling in your stomach. You start thinking, nothing ever goes right for me. Your thoughts are different from beliefs, because think about your beliefs as if they are rules guiding your experience of life. Your thoughts are simply the mental commentary that fires in response to the belief starting the chain off in the first place. That's how they're slightly different. Thoughts are kind of like mist on a window that you can just wipe off, which is why affirmations never really work, they don't stick. Your beliefs are like paint on the window. They're much more hardwired. That's the difference between thoughts and beliefs. You believe, guess, feel, think. Then this is the tricky one. You behave. based on the belief that has set off the sequence in the first place. So you're out with your partner, people can't be trusted, something's going to go wrong, you start feeling that feeling of dread in your stomach, you start thinking, no one can ever be trusted, no, I'm just terrible in relationships, I feel uncomfortable, this is rubbish, and then you behave. You clock out, you act distant, you push them away, you don't want to talk, you go into a shell, all because the belief has started the sequence in the first place. To be clear, none of this means that you're broken. Again, this is just what your brain does anyway. Your brain is going to have beliefs. So, where do we go from here? Here is the main takeaway I want you to have from this video after perhaps you understand a little bit about this behavioural loop. The way that you free yourself from the past loop of betrayal showing up in your present relationships and friendships and partnerships is this. First of all, you have to understand what beliefs your brain might be believing about other people. Remember? Other people, yourself, and the world. Get clear on it. Is it something like this? In the case of being cheated on or being screwed over, maybe you believe I'm unlovable. Maybe you believe, again, other people can't be trusted. Maybe you believe the world is a hostile place and everyone is selfish and out to serve their own interests. Maybe those are the cluster of beliefs that you have brought in to, or bringing into life. Once you get clear on what those beliefs are and you verbalize them, all you need to ask is one question in order to move on. Are you willing to entertain the idea that the opposite could be true? That is all I'm asking of you. And I'm asking it of you because if you go into new relationships with your beliefs from that emotional experience unchecked, you will sabotage them. You will sabotage them because relationships, in order for them to blossom, require trust. And again, I'm not saying that you now, from after this video, you need to go in to every relationship fully trusting of people. No, because you have your standards, you have your principles, your values, maybe some that you've gathered from this experience. You know, I appreciate this about people, I appreciate that about people. I'm not asking you to be fully trusting of people. All I'm asking of you is to just question the beliefs that you formed from perhaps this one experience or these cluster of experiences. If it's people can't be trusted, I 100%, anyone would understand why you would have that belief after what you've been through. Anyone would. But look at what it's doing to you. That belief is making you perceive people as untrustworthy. It's then making your guesses about what's going to happen. This is going to go wrong. I'm going to get screwed over again. This is going to be terrible. So then you just feel generalized anxiety and a hole in your stomach. You then think catastrophic thoughts about untrustworthiness and you behave distant, shelled off and closed away from other people. You don't have to update your beliefs. You do not have to. If that feels like too much, don't worry. But you have to be clear of the consequences of having beliefs that you perhaps don't even realize go unchecked as you enter or as you re-enter life. Are you willing to entertain the possibility that the opposite could be true? Are you willing? Because again, maybe you're not. Maybe you're not, and it would be understandable if you're not. But again, you have to understand the price that we pay for having our beliefs go unchecked and then we enter new relationships and friendships. I feel inclined to speak about trust here, even though this is the main takeaway I wanted you to have from this video. So I know it's been a bit of a ramble and we've gone here, there and everywhere, and I've been a bit more serious in this video because it feels a bit more emotionally pulling for me, this topic. Feel free to click off now if you've got everything that you need. But there's a few more things that are coming up for me. And one of them is trust. One of them is trust. And I think it highlights the real downside of having our beliefs go unchecked as we enter new relationships with people. Let's take a moment. We all know you can't have a relationship without trust. But no one really tells us, or at least I don't feel as if anyone really told me how trust works. Because one of the temptations that you might face after experiencing this betrayal, or this loss of trust with this person, what you might experience now is an overwhelming pursuit of certainty in the new people that you meet. Again, understandable. You've been screwed over in the past, so it now makes sense that if you're entertaining a new friendship or a new relationship, you will want to know everything about this person so that you can be 100% sure they're never going to screw you over, right? 100% certainty. You ask questions and you investigate and you want to figure out who this person is and you want to learn more about them and you want to scan every intricate detail about their behavior, their thoughts and their emotions and how they describe things so that you can see if they are worthy of trust. But here's what I've had to realize recently, which felt like almost swore, which felt like a monumental slap round the face. You will never get 100% certainty from any human being. Never. Never, ever, ever can you be 100% sure that anyone you meet and is in your life will not screw you over. Because it's always a possibility. You're never going to have 100% certainty over that. Which means, it would be understandable if after learning that new piece of information you would think, do you know what? Screw people, screw everything. I don't want to be betrayed again. I don't even want to put myself in the possible scenario where that could happen. Again, I'm going to go off into the mountains and just live alone. People do that. People have done that. It's understandable why you would do that. But if what you want is flourishing relationships, you want loyalty. I need a new pen, hold on. And you want trust, then you're not going to get that. You're not going to get all of these things by going off to the mountains and just renouncing people and always keeping yourself guarded, as understandable as it would be for you to do that, especially depending on the emotional weight and intensity of this betrayal. It's understandable why you would never want to get into a relationship again or entertain new people again. But if you want these things, then you have to understand one thing, which is in order to have trust, you have to give it away. The real way that trust works, that I've realised recently, is if you never give people the opportunity to be worthy of your trust, then you're never going to be able to learn that they are trustworthy in the first place. So it's a gamble. And it's a gamble that is going to require, again, you updating the beliefs that your brain has formed about reality. Because this bugger is controlling everything that you see and everything that you interpret. In order to have trust, give it away. But again, that might seem like too much. And you might think, really? I've got to risk everything again? It is a risk. People can screw you over, just in the same way as you can screw people over. Let's not let ourselves off the hook here. We can screw people over. Everyone can screw anyone over at any point in time. It's a miracle that people were in relationships in the first place, considering how much potential risk there is for being screwed over. It's a miracle that there are happy marriages out there. It's a miracle that there are deep friendships out there, but in your life as well. It's a miracle that any of that stuff exists. But it exists because both people have given the other person the opportunity to be worthy of trust. And let's be honest here. If we understand that you can never achieve 100% certainty in knowing that someone will never screw you over, because you can never control a human being in the same way as no one can ever control you. You can't control, no matter who you're in a relationship with, you're never going to be able to control all of their actions, thoughts, emotions and behaviours, and vice versa. So if we understand that, what is a worthwhile belief forming so that we can achieve this giving trust away? What would be a good one? I need you here in this room so we can brainstorm together. Here's something that comes to my mind. Let me grab the other green packet quick. Where is it? Here, I think. There was one right behind me the whole time. No matter what happens, I'll be fine. No matter what happens, I'll be fine. Yes, people can screw me over. Realistic. But I respect myself a lot more for giving them the chance of trust than always staying guarded. You're never going to be able to vet whether people will screw you over. You just got to give them the opportunity. And you can do that from a place of security in yourself by understanding, okay, it's going to take time for me to question these beliefs. And when that sequence fires of I believe people can't be trusted and I believe people with this characteristic and that can't be trusted, am I willing to entertain the opposite? The opposite actually makes me show up with different energy towards this person. And funnily enough, my relationship with them is improving, and the emotions I feel around them and the thoughts I have around them are completely different. My whole reality is changing. Oh, this feels a lot better. Let me continue in this direction. But let me not discard my experiences and be naive. I understand people can screw me over, but let me also be realistic and growth oriented and liberate myself with an expansive belief in light of all of those experiences. No matter what happens, if worse comes to worse and this person were to screw me over, no matter what happens, I will be fine. And I will be fine because when it comes to the end of my life and I am on my deathbed, if I have one, I will have a fountain, a overflow of respect for myself for having given people the chance of trust than always staying guarded. I'm glad that I got to the end of my life and I didn't shell myself into this hermit who was constantly in fear of people screwing me over. Instead, I became realistic about the fact that people could screw me over, and yet I chose to give them trust where I deemed it necessary anyway. You don't have to give people trust when you feel as if they are unworthy of it. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying. For the people who matter for you, for the people who you want to work through this stuff for, you have to understand that your relationship with them will not flourish unless you stand on the fundamental believing ground that yes, they can screw you over, but the relationship won't work until you give them trust. Because they need to be given the opportunity to be worthy of your trust in the same way as other people need you to prove yourself to them that you are worthy of their trust. I'm not sure why I felt compelled to make this video today, but I did. And I'm glad I've made it. Are you willing to entertain the opposite? Let's end here. Maybe in your case, that person is still in your life and you want to repair the relationship with them after a betrayal, in which case, let me know in the comments and I'll do a separate video about forgiveness. Because there's a brilliant book I read once called Why Won't You Apologize? By Harriet Lerner. I recommend reading that book. I've made some notes on it, so I think I could do a whole video deep dive on forgiveness, because it's not just a simple case of, oh, I forgive you. There's actually psychology involved in it as well, which is worth knowing, I believe. So comment down below if that person who you feel betrayed by is still in your life and you would like to heal your relationship with them, and I'll make that separate video about forgiveness. Let's end on these two principles. And I want to share these principles for you because they work like beliefs. And they will guide you forward in those moments of difficulty, when the loop pops up again of what happened. You're healed when you grasp the moral of the story, which simply means you can choose the narrative you have of this experience, and that might require you to sit down and type it all out freeform for the next 2 or 3 hours. Just revisit it, revisit the demons of what happened, and form a new narrative which serves you going forward. And that new narrative will be your belief, and it can be something along the lines of, you know, this happened, I'm not sure 100% why it happened, nor do I need to interrogate myself with the details and try and interpret the intentions of the people involved. But it happened. I don't need to have this to define my future going forward. Here's what I would like to believe about the world, myself, and other people as well. Yes, people can screw me over, but people have their reasons for doing things. I don't always have to believe that it's specifically about me, just as a quick example. And what you want to achieve there is you want to separate the past from emotion. You'll know that you've articulated this thing well enough in your psyche because you'll feel a calmness after the conflict. And sometimes that requires you to revisit the betrayal. You know, in filth it will be found, the old alchemical saying goes. You want to get yourself to the point where when you think about the past and it pops up, you don't feel the emotional pang anymore and your brain feels as if it's still happening, because it's not. I should have done this at the beginning. I could have done this at the beginning and I completely forgot to, but just have a look around you in your room, where you are right now. Look at this video. This thing that feels like it's happening isn't. It's not. It's just your brain can't tell the difference between the present and the past when it thinks about it. Okay? You're healed when you grasp the moral of the story. And the final principle, which is one of my favourites, which is a quote from Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher. The best revenge is to not be like that. This is an opportunity for you to practice your virtue. And just because you've been screwed over doesn't mean you get a free pass. As understandable as that might be for your brain to interpret that. So quick summary, just before we go. We said that, let's do it in this orange. Your beliefs, most fundamental level of behavior change. After this experience, your brain formed a belief that is limiting you and sabotaging your relationships. So what you need to do is understand the belief loop. Your beliefs fire your brain's predictions, guesses, emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. So in order to stop that loop and update yourself, you simply need to entertain, once you've caught the belief, am I willing to consider that the opposite of this belief might be true? And then that will show up completely, or you will show up completely differently to life. Because in one example of a limiting belief, you could think, oh, people can't be trusted. Your brain's guesses is, my relationships are going to go bad. You feel anxiety, you think catastrophic thoughts, and then you behave distant, shelled off, or anxious towards this person. But if you were to consider the opposite of that belief, which was people can't be trusted, and you think something more realistic, something that works for you along the lines of, people can screw me over, but I would respect myself more at the end of my life for having given them the opportunity to be worthy of my trust than staying guarded, then that belief is going to interpret all the information that you see, which means you're going to see the opportunities that you could recognize this person as trustworthy. Your guess is, oh, this relationship is actually flourishing and I can trust in this person. Maybe I can't one day, but for now I can trust them. Your emotions then show up as joy, presence, calmness. You think, oh, this person, I actually admire this person for many different ways. And then you behave completely differently around them by giving them more of yourself. Understanding that, yeah, it could go wrong, but you give them more of yourself, because the more you give, the more trust you can build. Which brings us to the final point that we mentioned, which is to have trust, give it away. Very different type of video, this one, if you're used to my videos. But nevertheless, thank you very much for your time and attention. Let me know down below if anything was unclear. I hope I didn't come across as a little bit too serious or a little bit too attacking in any way. I wanted to make it clear that this is something that I'm experiencing right now and I don't want to experience anymore. It's going to take time for us to work through it, but you can use this video as a safe place for you whenever those spirals of the brain loop and the belief loop start kicking off and you feel as if you have no one to turn to. It's going to take time. We're in it together. Yeah, be patient with yourself and be compassionate as well. That goes a long way. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.